Yep. Okay, let's begin.
Man,
I
I have
like
to
this
prepare
question.
my social skills for this.
We'll do this question first because I like it. Name three things that speak of your character as being Chancellor material. Pandastical, you can go first.
Oh yeah. Okay. First of all, I mean, I think we've all agreed that I am perfectly level-headed, unlike some unnamed candidates. Which yeah, he just tried to CJ me. Yeah, I'm level-headed. Um, that's a great quality for a leader. I think I'm pretty good at diplomacy. I think I could get things done, and I do think our nation needs a lot of good diplomacy. And I think everyone knows me at least to some extent, or at least they've seen me around the Discord, which is a bare standard, right? So I meet that at
Hmm.
least.
Okay. Uh, cool, Cha-Cha. What
I'm
three things?
pandastical.
What three things of your character make you Chancellor material? If you can type it in chat, you can do that. No. Hmm. Okay, you can grind and actually do 75% of advanced and speak my mind. I don't think getting pearled is a. I think we have an imposter here. Hmm. Is that your only? Okay. We'll move on to Comrade Sankara. What three things of your character make you Chancellor material?
Folks, this is Governor General of Grenada, Comrade Sankara. I think the three things that make me qualified to be Chancellor are that I'm experienced, that I'm level-headed, and that I'm generous. I've been at this for a long time, playing since Civcraft 1.0. I generally feel like I have a good handle on the mechanics of Civ, and feel like I'm equipped to help new people understand that. I'm also level-headed. I feel like I've done a good job of trying to help negotiate things over the past several months of being here. And lastly, I'm generous. Generally, I really like to help the IF, help other people who need resources. I try to make a habit of trying to collect things that are difficult to find, and make sure that people in the IF can have those for free or low cost. I think this is best displayed by the Grenadian Free Pony program that grants anyone who asks a free horse. We've supplied lots of people with free horses. It's been really successful, and I think it's really helped people around the world.
Yeah. Okay. And Zero, same question to you.
Yeah, of course. I think there's an issue that hasn't been talked about enough, and it's just the fact that the chancellor should really just be listening to the people, but also to the Senate that represents the people. There's been too many instances where the Senate and the chancellor are not working together to actually change things and to actually make products work, which just made for some chancellors having a really uneventful and really just unproductive term. So I do think that active listening is something that can distinguish me in the sense that I will always be looking forward to listen to both citizens and the Senate. And another thing is that coming with that is that the chancellor should really be transparent in the sense that every decision should be motivated by something and shouldn't be based out of just emotions and how the chancellors feel in that specific second. And the people should know about that. The people should know why the motivation is being done and why their nation is being controlled a certain way. And coming with that as well, which is I think related, comes rationality. I don't think we should have people that are just basing themselves off emotions to oh my god, I'm mad, so I should go obby bombing everyone in the whole world. I think that it would be a grave mistake to elect anyone who isn't capable of being rational, and that it would hurt both the diplomacy of the IF and how the IF is seen on the international stage.
Ah, okay. Very interesting.
Cool. Chacha just got dropped.
Oh. Ah, it happens. All right, next up. This question was originally just about taxes, but I'd like to expand it a bit to generally funding projects. So, how do you think, or if at all, should the IF have a treasury? And if so, what should the treasury be used for? And how would we collect funds for the projects from the treasury? Would anyone like to answer first? Okay, Mr. Sankara.
Folks, under no circumstances as Chancellor would I introduce anything resembling taxes. I think the Imperial Federation has developed up until this point without taxes, and that's something that I think makes us attractive for new players and other established players to move here. I think we should have a treasury, and we should make sure that we are only spending what we're bringing in. And I think there are a number of different ways that we can bring in funds to the treasury. That can include things like the 50-50 raffle that the king is running. That can also include things like property sales. And that can also include things like donations from generous citizens. And I'm prepared to ensure that as Chancellor, we can fully fund and make sure that people are paid for their labor for things like developing Imperia and contributing to the IF in other ways.
Okay. Zero, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I can go next. So I don't think anyone on this stage will be favorable to a tax of any sort. I definitely want to be able to find ways to fund the federal government, and I believe it's really important to have effective revenue sources. But it's not my intention to impose any taxes of any kind. First, the logistics of doing so would be extremely difficult. I don't think it's even possible on Civ to do something like that effectively. But it's also not something that we used since the beginning of the IF. There's many ways to help fund projects, and I think there's most of them are already in place, but just need to be developed further and need to be pushed. For example, we have the capital Imperia, where a good part of the treasury is coming from selling parts of the shopping district. A pretty decent part of the treasury that the IF has right now has been through the capital development. Though a lot of people criticize the capital Imperia, a lot of revenue has been coming from it. And so I think we should really push that further, both using the treasury to develop Imperia, but also taking in revenue from Imperia, as well as other initiatives, such as really making sure that the 50/50 lottery is working, and also use some infrastructure and maybe charge citizens for them. Infrastructure that are not essential. We are talking here about, for example, the military eyesores that could definitely be used in a civilian setting if we tax for them, or some more advanced factories like an advanced ore smelter, where we could take the federal government could take some part of it to fund its project. So I definitely think that some infrastructures could be used and charged as well. But that's about it.
Okay. Mr. Pandastical, your turn.
Yeah, so like broadly on the question of like, I guess it's more like a wholly economics question, like more than just taxes. Of course, I agree with the other questions. I think Zero sort of hit the nail on the head that taxes in Civ are absolutely just logistically impossible. They drive away new friends. You know, it's just not something you can realistically pursue. But I think that selling store slots in Imperial, like Zero said, is absolutely yes. I'm saying your nails, Zero. Is absolutely something that we can do to raise revenue. I think that broadly the federal government should spend money either to help pay for something that helps the whole nation, but an individual state can't afford to do within its boundaries. Like, for example, establish a bunker inside a state. A lot of states can't afford to do that. Then the federal government can step in and help, or with highways or rails, or in case of war, we're gonna need to have a good treasury stocked up with money to pay for emergency wartime expenditure.
Okay. And Cool Chacha, would you like to answer this question? I see. Dislike of taxes. Period. Advanced XP. So funding through advanced XP.
I don't know if he's allowed to ask me a question right now, but I'd be happy to answer it if he can.
Yeah, we can
Got you.
do questions later near the end. Okay, so is that your response to that? All right. And then a lot of people brought up the Capitol and the Capitol building, so I'll just elaborate on that a bit. What's your stance on the Capitol? Should we be putting more effort into it? And if so, who should be doing this? Pandastical, you were first, so you can go ahead.
All right. Sorry, Zero. Don't make me feel guilty. Don't get away that frowny face. I'll admit that I'm really bad at building, like for real. But I think that there are a lot of players on me that don't that building is not what they come to Civ for. So they're not gonna just do it, out of the kindness of their hearts, but through paying players, especially like Civ is just like in the real world. If you give someone money to do something, they are a million times more likely to do it. And, getting people to sort of work together in groups like at the same time, like doing something socially is way more fun than alone, right? Like Civ is a social genre. So paying people to sort of work with groups and work on the capital is going to get a lot of work done quickly.
Okay. Zero, you can go next.
I did a pretty developed written answer if anyone wants, like, after the debate, more explanation, because I don't want to, like, go too long on the capital, but I did definitely think it's one of my highest priorities, the capital, because first, it's a potential source of revenue. We need to think about the fact that the buildings that are being built are being sold as well, and they are being sold for a profit, at least, especially buildings that have a commercial purpose, such as the Imperial shopping district that, as I said, is responsible for a good part of the IF treasury at the moment. A lot of criticism has been raised saying that the capital hasn't advanced or anything like that, but I think it's just showing how little players in the that are not working on the capital know about the capital itself, and I think we definitely need to do more work in really making the Imperia a project that everyone feels like they're a part of it, by just making sure that everyone participates. Pendastical raised the question of paying people, and I think it's a really good idea. Though it's already something that's been done. And for a pretty decent amount, for building a house in Imperia, you can get between 20 and 30 diamonds just to build it. And so I think we just need to make those initiatives more known, and we definitely need to also raise the amount of money that's being paid for the materials. I do think that the labor is a good amount, but the materials is a completely ridiculous amount. So we need to make those initiatives more known, and we need to, it's one of the ways that the citizens can get richer. It's by contributing to public projects like these. And I think we just need to really put those out and make sure that it is known that there are such initiatives for citizens to gain money while advancing on public projects. So it will definitely be one of the highest priorities under a chancellorship for me.
Okay. And Sankara, how would you deal with the capital business?
Yeah, I think I agree that the capital needs to be a high priority. It's something that we need to start work on as soon as possible, and it's something that can contribute both to the increased revenue into the Imperial Federation as well as to advertisement. People want to live at a beautiful city. I really commend the work of lots of different people in designing some really beautiful builds on Zeral's private creative server. But we need to figure out a way to accelerate the development of that in Civ MC. And I think the way that we do that is simple. We follow the playbook that other nations have followed, which is, one, I think significantly and immediately increasing the compensation for people who help design, collect materials for, or build in the capital. This could include diamonds. It could also include revenue from the advanced EXP, and it could also include free or discounted access to buy some of the builds in the capital.
Okay.
I think we also want to make sure that everyone understands and knows how to install Litematica, because that's the software, the mod that is used to copy builds between the creative server and in-game. And then, I also want to make sure that we're hosting regular build nights, at least weekly, if not more frequent, just so that people are able, as Panda was saying, it's more fun to do these things when you're doing them with other people, As far as my capability to do this, I've already contributed a high amount of materials for both the Grand Circus, for some of the houses, and for the bridge. I think my experience and track record speaks for itself. And I look forward to working with everyone on the Capitol as Chancellor moving forward.
Cool. Oh, this guy just exploded. Anyways, cool, Chacha.
Did CJ get here?
I think so. The Capitol needs actual work done by paid workers and people to grind mats. Okay. So it seems like a lot of you brought up just getting, more people involved, and definitely we'd want new players to get involved. So, what's your opinion on how do you expect, if you believe it's a good idea, for us to recruit more new players, and get more new friends, and get them involved as well? Okay, Pandastical.
Yeah, I mean, I think that IF so far, like, I'd honestly say that the vast majority of the IF success has been driven by new players. I'd have to guess that old friends are a very small minority of IF players. The vast majority are definitely under a year, under 2 years of Civ, and I think honestly that's a strength that we should keep going in. Slowly. These are some of the most I guess wide-eyed in a way, but that's honestly a trade. These are not as cynical as old friends, and they contribute a lot to the RP, and they're very dedicated. They're definitely not burnt out yet. So I think getting more new friends is a great idea. I think that Jolf was suggesting this, that we sort of make like almost a magazine catalog for all the states with like a sort of elevator pitch and a picture. I definitely work on that as Chancellor. I've written tons of newspapers for the paper. The last paper that was planned to be written, I basically wrote all the articles really quickly, and I'd be happy to work on that for the magazine to try to show new friends, what we have to offer in a clear and concise way.
Okay. Anyone want to go next? Okay.
I don't. Okay, go ahead.
Comrade Sinkar, you can go.
Yeah, I think this is a really important question. As I had mentioned, I've been playing Civ for a very long time, and throughout the entire time that I've played, new friends have always been the lifeblood of any nation. There are a few things that I like to do to both increase recruitment and increase retention. I think the first thing to increase recruitment is that I want to work with the King to restart many of the recruitment initiatives that King Cooper had done previously. These include advertising on some of the more obscure vexillological RP subreddits, and making sure that we have an advertisement underneath every advertisement post by the server admins. The second thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that we immediately begin construction and finish creating the new friend tutorial zone in the capital, and make sure that every new friend who decides that they want to join gets a full tour of any states that they'd like to see. Finally, I want to make sure that we are connecting new people with established players, regardless of how much experience they have. I think that we have several new states, Sir Marjorie, Holland. We have established states like Godhaven and Gotland. I think all of these places have people who are equipped to help people get established. Esberg as well, yes, Esberg Osterend. I think all of these places have players who are established who can help people get started. And Civ is really all about getting people connected such that they feel welcome on the server and they feel like they're capable of contributing to the nation.
Okay. Zero, if you want to go.
I can go. So I think Sankara pretty much nailed it with his answer. One thing I'd like to add is that most of these initiatives were powered by King Cooper, and one thing that we really need to do is to build a task force, essentially to build a group of people. And it was already sort of launched, but it never actually took off. We need to build a group of people that are willing to show the IF around to some people, that are willing to take them to Imperia, to show them that the new friend tutorial, that are willing to get them through the states that they might be interested in. And most importantly, I think that those people should have a knowledge of what is the play style of every state. Clearly, the play style of Gotland is more, for example, a play style where we, coming from Gotland, we like to build, for example, and we planify our build, which is not something that's done in Godhaven because it's not necessarily for everyone. Some people like to grind more, and some other states are more appropriate for that. So it's really dependent on someone's play style where they should go. And I think that tour guides that are touring the IF should have a basic knowledge of that to better orient people towards a state where they might feel a better experience, a better game experience playing in the IF. Because we definitely have a good variety of states and gameplay and game style across the IF because of like how diversified we are because of the many states we have, which is a chance we have. Not many nations can say that they have many different play style depending on the city where you live. This is a chance we have, and we should definitely take advantage of it.
Okay. And cool, Cha, if you have an answer to this. It says, as a new friend, it's much more than looking around and going for a nation. Making it easier for people to join, to have our nation be more well known, and just having people joining. Okay. And someone sent me this question, and I'm just going to ask it now because I think it's kind of relevant and on topic to this. If there was a new player or a group of new players who just came to the Imperial Federation, and if they wanted to start their own state, should we let them? Should we give them some land for it? And if so, where would you like to put them? Maybe in some unclaimed land near us, or in one of the federal districts, something like that. Okay, Comrade Sankara.
Yeah, I think that groups of new players should be welcomed with open arms. Recently, I had the privilege of being able to see the new state of Holland. I think they have up to 6 or 7 players by now, and it's really quite impressive what they've been able to put together in the short time that they've been on the server. I really encourage everyone to go over there and take a look. I think the other thing that's interesting to note is the sort of how this affects the development of an Imperial Federation culture. Several of the people who started Holland are originally from Godhaven, Ohio, and you can really sort of see the similarities but differences in build style and play style when you go over there. I think that this is sort of proof that we need to be willing to welcome people, whether or not they want to settle on federal district land or whether they want to settle in land that is nearby, outside on New Friend Reserve or just unclaimed land. I know it's somewhat the conversation around New Friend Reserve versus unclaiming land versus federal districts is somewhat controversial, but I really think what's most important is just making sure that people who want to be a part of the IF are allowed to be, and that they are supported in their journey on CivMC.
Okay. Would anyone like to go next? Okay. Zero, go ahead.
I think there's when we talk about new friends wanting to build their own state, I think we cannot get out of the question of the territory of the IF. I love Alan. I love what you guys did, but there is a broader issue that needs to be addressed here, where the territory of the IF is extremely large, and we must settle it where we have empty lands, because we have a lot of it. There's states in the IF. I'm talking about Vermont. I'm talking about CCTT that own gigantic amount of land that they're never gonna use, and this might be a controversial idea, but we need to make sure that this land is used before we are claiming other land like we did with Allen. That's something that I find really important. So I completely agree that every single person who wants to settle in the IF should be able to settle in the IF, but that's exactly what they should be. They should be settling in the IF. It shouldn't be the IF expanding its borders to allow players to get in. We are already one of the largest nation by territory. It's already the case. We must not expand. We must make sure that we settle the land we already have. Not only because it's going to help in our diplomacy, but also because there's been growing talks. There's been growing talks about reducing land. There's many nations, Icarus and many other nations, that have actively reduced their claims. And in the meantime, the IF is actively growing their claims, even though we have most of the IF that's completely empty, and that's completely ridiculous. I want people to settle in land that's empty, that's within the IF, not outside of the IF, for our borders to grow.
Okay. Anyone over here want to
Wait, what question are we on again?
go? We're talking about if a new player joined or a new group of new players joined, and let's say they wanted to, make a new state. Where should they be put? Maybe outside the IF, inside the IF, wherever. Cool Chacha says that new players should have the choice of what land to claim and where, and if they want to do it in federal land or the new friend reserve or unclaimed, or anywhere, just because the current land, not the best. Would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree that I've been to some of the federal land we have, and I will admit that a lot of it is extremely mountainous. It is just extremely rough. Like it is not prime real estate, right? Which I mean, I think we can all agree on that, right? Let's not delude ourselves. But I think a lot of the land that we do have that's already claimed by states is land, like the prior candidate said that they are not going to use. That I mean, it's just gonna sit there. So why should we? Yeah, like Zoral said, absolutely. I don't think we should take away by force, but I think as a chancellor, we have this bully pulpit power that we can speak and our words have impact, and we should use that to try to negotiate with states to try and get them to give up some of their unused land, right? That's good for new friends, and give that to these groups of new friends that want to settle here, right? Like that's the big benefit of a federation government is to allow these new friends to sort of set up their own states.
Okay. And Zero and Pendastical, you've already answered this, but so I'll let these two answer. Recently there's been a lot of talk of kind of dissolving or reducing the claims of inactive states, and also just in general unclaiming land. So would you support that, dissolving inactive land or states? Yes. Comrade Sinkar, you can go.
Yeah, so I think this is an important conversation to have. I think that the recent developments around the world of different nations declaiming or unclaiming land that they're not using is in general a positive one. I know it's intimidating for new people who come to the server who want to start something up, and they see land that is everything's claimed, and it's just like intimidating to know where to settle down, who to reach out to, how that all works. As far as when it comes to the Imperial Federation, I absolutely want to make sure that we are evaluating all claims for all states and all federal territories. As a part of my 72-hour report starting off, I want to make sure that all of those things are evaluated. We need to see which states are active, which states have land that they could give up, which federal territories are being unused, and which federal territories could be given up. At the same time, I really don't want to force any states that have active players to declaim land that they may want to use in the future. And at the same time, when we have federal territories, I want to make sure that all the federal territories that we are declaiming do not include important IF security or farm infrastructure within its borders, to make sure that people still have access to the infrastructure that they need. But otherwise, I'm totally open to making sure that we're not overclaiming land. I'm sort of noted as someone who's in the past been very against clan claims. And so, we need to make sure and evaluate everything, but make sure that we're doing so in a way that's reasonable and safe.
Okay. Cool, Chacha. You say land should be used, and we're different from the Gengshi land claim or the South Augustan land claim. Okay. And Zero, you mentioned to me that you want to expand on your point a little bit, so you can go ahead.
Yeah. Just to name a few figures. Right now, if we name a few examples, let's talk about CCTT. We had Comrade Sankara say that we shouldn't take away land from states that are planning on using it. But the thing is that are they really going to use it? Between Strasm, Mkai, and Kione, there's about 2,000 blocks. So it's a pretty big difference, right? There's literally water separating the both of them. What about Vermont? It's about between Vermont and Strassenkai, there's about almost 5,000 blocks. Okay, and the state of CCTT touches all of these states. How much of that is actually being used at the moment? It's about 50 chunks. 50 chunks, most of it being farmland. I think that the states need to be reasonable in the amount of land they're going to use. And states like Godhaven have been actively using their land. They are actively developing it. And I'm not saying we should take away any land from Godhaven or from Alland or from states that are actively developing it. But CCTT and Vermont are the two biggest states in terms of territory in the IF. And that's a fact. They are the two states that have the most amount of territory, and yet they are the least active state with the least amount of buildings, with the least amount of active players, and yet they still have the only land in the IF. If we take away Imperia, they have the only land in the IF that is not snowy, and they're among the biggest state. I think there's something that needs to be done here, and I do think that some action needs to be taken, even if it's by force, to make sure that there's land to settle for new friends, that there's land for people who want to grow, and not for people to hold on to crayon claims that they're never going to use. That's what I have to say.
Okay. Pandastical, I don't know if you want to expand on your answer a little bit, or you don't have to.
I think my view is pretty understood.
Okay. Do you have something to add, Cool Chacha? No, oh, you just felt like clicking the button. I get it.
It is a nice button.
It is.
I'm sorry, Philhammer. I'm sorry.
All right, so talking about the states a lot. Let's just move on to some talk about that. So, what's just your general policy on states' rights, the rights of states? Do you think they should be expanded, retracted, or kept the same as how they are right now? Pandastical, you can go.
Yeah, I mentioned this on the Discord, but I think that states' rights are one of the defining features of the IF, not just in its government, but in its appeal. And I'd fully support states being able to do whatever they want. If they want to be like one of our fellow candidates, his fun RP dictatorship state, that's totally their prerogative. Go ahead and do that. That's a fun thing. If Mira is an awesome state with an awesome leader who has this really creative and fun idea. And I think it's great that they're able to do that. The only limit to states' rights I would see is if it inhibits security. If we really could use a bastion there or snitch networks there, and they won't let us. Only then does it really become a problem.
Okay. Would anyone like to go next?
And I just like to mention that I do disagree that the only good state is Godhaven.
Okay. Would anyone like to go next? Okay, Comrade Sinkar.
Yeah, like Panda said, I think the IF's diversity in play styles and architecture and in governance is, I think, what makes this place really appealing for new players who want to start off. As Chancellor, I would block any proposed constitutional amendments that seek to infringe on states' internal rights to internal governance, to architecture, to infrastructure. At the same time, I also want to make sure that new and existing states feel like they have access to all materials, factories, and infrastructure that they need. And so in order to do this, as Chancellor, I will directly interface with state leaders and make sure that any materials that they need can be sourced within the IF. And if not, I'm fully prepared to assist setting up deals with people outside of the IF to get those materials. I have a history and record of doing this. I've helped people in Godhaven reinforce their builds. I've also helped our current king set up a deal to purchase a large amount of Blackstone from abroad. And this is something that I will continue to do in the future, just to make sure that we all have what's necessary to do our builds, do our RP, do whatever we'd like in the States. Yeah.
Okay. Zero, would you like to go?
I can go. I don't want to centralize or decentralize the Imperial Federation. I think the way it is right now is great, but I think the main issue is that the federal government is not taking enough initiative in the things it controls. I want the federal government to do way more than it's doing, but only the things that it's supposed to be doing things. Right? So what does the federal government controls? It's controlling the military, the infrastructures that are between states, and overall, we can also think of the federal government as something that can organize projects and events between states. And I don't think it's doing enough of that. I mean, we have crippling military infrastructure, and it's clear that we need to have way more large-scale projects that all states can just come together and participate. We also need the federal government right now, especially in a time of time king Cupar leave and add a bit of a power vacuum for a moment, we really need the federal government to be a factor of unity in the Imperial Federation. We really need the federal government to make events, to create projects that all citizens from all across the Imperial Federation can come together and work together. Because what I've seen in the last week is a lot of citizens of the Imperial Federation, including one of the candidates here, called Chacha, shitting on other states, just, shitting on other states. And I don't think that's the way I want the Imperial Federation to be. I do think that every state has its own personality, but I do think that what the Imperial Federation is about, it's about many states with individual culture and individual force and weaknesses coming together to make a nation that's not only working, but that's beautiful and that's working on the international stage. And that's not what's happening right now, because the federal government is not doing anything in what it's supposed to be doing. That's it for me.
Okay. And cool, Chacha. You have anything to say about this? Says states' rights are one of the reasons he's still in the IF, as it gives a good amount of free reign to states that they can use. And okay, that is wholesome. And then next up, this is a very related question: the policy of the development of states. What's your policy on helping states develop? Would you possibly divert federal funds to state projects? Yeah, and yeah, okay. Yes, fantastical.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, one of the prerogatives of the government should not be as much doing like normal things like, building cities other than Imperial themselves, but merely supporting the things that states need to do that. So, help build a highway from, the normal part of this country, right? That sort of active eastern coast part, in the southern sea islands, from that part, and sort of help build infrastructure to the west, which I think should, developing these sort of unused CT and Vermont lands, so help them build highways and rails and all that. That should be a big priority of what the federal government does to help states. Help them, give them the tools needed to build stuff, and then let them build that stuff themselves. Oh God. No, not
yes, comrades and comrades.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, as Chancellor, I really want to interface directly with state leaders and state citizens to ensure that they have the resources and factories that they need. But I think we can go beyond that, and I think the question maybe goes beyond this a little bit. We have a pretty good rail system across the IF, and I think it's important to use federal funds to connect that and make sure that everyone has connection to that, because that can really be a way, for new players to get to those places, and for existing players to get to other places, to conduct economic transactions, just to visit other parts of the world, whatever they'd like. I think that we can also use federal funds, as I mentioned, to pay people to do these things, to pay people to help improve the roads, to reinforce things, to pay people to work on Imperia. And I think we can use federal funds, and I think we should prioritize using federal funds if they're going to states to help new states develop, to help new players get situated. I really want us to make sure and bring back the idea of having new player starter kits, giving a player a number of stacks of smooth stone for a reinforcement, a set of tools, and a set of gold prot. This is also something that I think can be paid for by federal funds if states do not have the existing resources to pay for them. But I also want to make sure that we're spending within our means. And while lots of people here have been working on stuff like the Advanced EXP, like the Imperia districts, we need to make sure we're getting enough income in order to support our expansion. And I think that we are, and I think that we can continue to expand that income such that the federal government can do its job and help people.
Okay. Zero, if you want to go.
I can go for sure. So I think there's been things that, for example, Comrade Sinclair said that I think are already done and doesn't need to work on. We already have rails connecting every state except the newest state of Allen, and that's a connection that is not going to take a lot of time. It's like a few hundred blocks away from Godhaven. We even have states such as Western Boundary that me and 8 and other people from Gotland have been connecting. I think that's not the issue. The rails are incredibly slow. To get from Gotland to Imperia takes 10 minutes. I mean, it's crazy to think that the rail system is effective as it is right now. We need to develop civilian ice road for everyone in the IF to be able to use. And if we actually want people from the IF to come together, they need a place where they can go together. But the question was not about that. The question was about how to help the new states develop. And I think however, Comrades and Kara really nailed it. I think we really need to help them with the basic materials that they need. I'm talking about stone, and it's something I've been actively doing. I've helped states such as Surmadri get tons of stone so they can be reinforced and therefore not get griefed. I've helped states such as Esberg get ore smelter so that they can exchange their ore and be autonomous in their mining. And I think that's what the sheriff. It shouldn't be private citizens like me or Comrades and Kara with all the help he's done, or other citizens of the IF, such as Southwest, who I remember did a lot of things, such as providing Iron Forge for certain states. It shouldn't be private citizens who do that. It should be the federal government. You know, earlier when I said that the federal government is not doing anything, that's what I mean. The federal government should be doing that, and yet it's private citizens who are doing it right now. And that's not normal. I think every private citizen who've been doing this, including Comrade Sankara, Southwest, me, and many others, we thank them a lot. But it should be on the federal government. The federal government needs to provide infrastructure, needs to provide the basic materials, and needs to provide basic factories for states to develop themselves. Thank you.
Okay. And we'll do one more question, the last major question that was asked before the debate started, and we'll do a few more free questions. Obviously, I'm sure we're all over because Cool Chacha seems to have given up. Okay. I'm sure we're all aware that Pride Lands is leaving. Some call it Brexit, but I think that's a stupid name. Whatever. What are your thoughts on that, and how will you be negotiating with them? Pandastical, you can go first.
All right, fire. We all know that this is why I ran to begin with. So I'm very passionate about this topic, and I will happily, talk about this for ages. But I think that, to summarize, the Pride Land's leaving, whether it's a stupid name or not, Brexit is the easier way to say it. So I'm just going to say Brexit. Brexit is a net negative for the nation. We are losing, really some of our best builds, some of our, most dedicated, primary citizens, and I think it's
Pedastical.
All right. Maybe not. No, it wasn't reinforced.
Ah,
God.
yes, it is built in the Ohio style.
That's true. Wait, what was I saying? Hold on. Oh, right. Okay.
Net negative for the nation.
Yeah, it's a net negative for nation, right? We're losing all this stuff. And, Pride Lands can try to spin it all they want, but, it is a net negative at the end of the day. And I'm not going to try to stop them from leaving, right? Like, that's not logistically possible. But I am going to treat it like what it is, and what it is a bad thing, right? So, to try and sort of deal with this, I plan to, sort of negotiate on behalf of what's best, primarily for the IF, not what's best for Pride Lands, what is best for the IF, right? We are 100% going to keep, a feline is going to stay in the Pride Lands. The rails are at least partially going to be under our control as much as I can get from negotiations, the Imperial Federation should go first, right? Like, Pride Land should not be discussed over what is best for the IF. No, feline will not stay in the Pride Lands. It will stay in the IF. Sorry, Southwest. No, Brexit. If you vote for Pandastical, that is above all a vote against Brexit.
I would suggest moving out of the way as well. Here, let me drop you down. Yes. Okay. Would anyone like to go next? Okay.
I want to go next.
Zero, you can go next.
I'm the complete opposite of Pandastical. Hear me out. The Treaty of Ascension was in place. Everyone knew it was going to happen at some point, and the way we've been working with the Pride Lands is not going to change. The only thing that's going to change is that they're not going to have the federal government of the Imperial Federation over them because they don't want to anymore. The Pride Lands have always been extremely important allies of our nation, and we have been part of they've been part of our nation for like a majority of its existence. And I think that negotiation shouldn't be done in a way where we are just like, oh yeah, Pride Land comes IF come first. It should be done in a way where we have mutual respect and where the primary goal is maintaining a mutually beneficial alliance relationship between the two nations. I think that we need to negotiate in a fair manner with a primary goal of establishing a really strong relationship between the IF and the Pride Lands, because that's how the alliance should be. Therefore, I completely agree on the feline statement. And it's not even enforceable. The only thing that's built in feline right now is farms that are being used exclusively by Pride Land citizens. It's farms that were built by Pride Land citizens. It's a territory that's currently in the Pride Land territory, and even the Treaty of Ascension says that every territory gained by the Pride Lands during its stays in the IF stays with the Pride Lands. So I think the negotiation that should be made is not feline staying in the IF, but we should do something a bit like Kione, where where feline stays in the IF for its territorial integrity, because it's a fact that feline is literally in the middle of the IF. However, I think that I definitely think that the Pride Lands should have complete control over it, because it's basically their land. They've been using it since the beginning, and it's not something that it's not something that we can enforce. Even if we were to say we're kicking you out of your land, it's not something that we can enforce. It's completely ridiculous to think so. So I'm stepping down.
Can I please respond to that?
Can I chime in with the clarification first?
No, let's just let Comrade Sinkara answer first, and then we can respond, because then we'll be moving into more direct conversation. So, Comrade Sinkara, you can go.
Yeah, so I think I agree with aspects of what both of the candidates have said. I think that to an extent, the Pride Lands leaving is a net negative on the IF, and that is simply because the Pride Lands citizens have contributed so much to the development of the Imperial Federation. As Giro has mentioned, that they have treaty rights to secede unilaterally, and have always made clear that they are more independent and have had a desire to exercise those in the future. I fully respect that. I'm sad to see them leave, but I really want us to take a forward-looking approach to this and negotiate a fair and friendly deal for Brexit that preserves joint access to joint infrastructure. So things like the rails, things like the Nether portal. We want to make sure that people who are using those retain access to those in perpetuity. I think I want to talk a little bit about my process. As I mentioned, I want to make a fair and friendly deal. And I think what this means is it means talking to senators from the various states. It means kind of just taking stock of what is jointly owned, what is separately and privately owned, and making sure that everyone receives access and ownership to the things that they have built. I want to also make sure that we ensure a security deal to make sure that we can preserve the national security of both the IF and the Pride Lands. I think that just because they are leaving the IF doesn't mean that we have to stop being allies. I live up in Grenada, and Freeport's been an excellent set of neighbors. I still remember the time that we finished digging the tunnel between the two and seeing Southwest, and I think that was it was really great. It was really great to get connected to others, and I hope remain connected and friendly for the foreseeable future.
Okay. And again, I think Ghoul Chasha has lost interest in the debate, so he won't.
Can I have a counterpoint?
Yes, you may.
All right. With all due respect, yes, it is true that I want to clarify that I do not hate Pride Lands, right? I do not hate any Pride Land citizens. I think Southwest and Bistalio have been some of the best. I do not. No, it's not true. I think Bistalio and Southwest have been some of the best IF citizens that we've ever had, right? I have voted for Bistalio, I think, in every election he has been in, right? He would be a legitimately good chancellor, right? These are great citizens. Pride Rock is a testament to that, right? That is, other than, Ohio City, where we are now, that is the best city in all of, the IF probably, right? Like with very little debate. Oh my God, Southwest is burning himself as a protest, I guess, but
No, I'm just testing the fire protection.
okay, yeah. Like I believe that they are amazing people, right? Other than Ohio City, Pride Rock is the best city in the IF, and losing Pride Rock City is going to be a loss to the IF, to its prestige, to its what we can show on our plate, right? And I mean, it is true that I want to pursue a defensive pact, I want to pursue a friendship, right? But the friendship is not based on a on paper defensive friendship pact. A defensive pact / friendship agreement is based on friendship, right? Like friendship can always change, and I think a good deal is only a good deal if it can work in bad times. So I think we need to honestly agree that if Pride lands and the IF were ever to come into disagreement, to become enemies, to become less friendly, the IF has to be in a state where it can function without a friendship with the Pride lands, or else we're just a puppet, right? Like we have to be able to function independently of another independent state, and that means keeping Feline. Because if Pride lands owns Feline and Pride lands is in disagreement as an enemy of the IF, then we're screwed, because it's going to separate our player base, it's going to separate our important highway, our flat land, right? Like this major travel infrastructure, right? Like we need to keep Feline, right? We just need to keep Feline, and even if they do a lot of work on it, I'd be happy giving joint ownership, but at least it's gonna stay in the IF, even if jointly, right? Like that is unnegotiable to me, right? Like I am voting for IF first, not Pride Lands and the IF first. Pride Lands becoming friendly to us is great. I want to pursue that, but it cannot be what this entire agreement is based on.
Okay.
Do you mind if I make some clarifying points regarding the Treaty of Ascension, because that did come up, and it is kind of important.
If you could phrase it as a question, then yes.
Well, one, it's just a correction needs to be made about the text of it, because one of the candidates was
Very
incorrect about
quickly.
context.
Very quickly.
The Treaty of Ascension states basically the opposite of what Zero said. Any land acquired by the Pridelands after joining the IF is ceded to the IF unless otherwise negotiated. So technically, the East Lionsgate Archipelago and Feline would have to be negotiated or forfeit.
Yes. Okay. And we have about 5 to 10 minutes left. I'll bring up this question.
There are questions on the Discord.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. I'll bring up this question at Zolast, I believe. Is a very good one.
Perfect. And I just like to thank you, JMQN, because you've been a great moderator.
Okay. Well, how will the candidates handle the loss of Pavia as an ally? Do you plan to get more alliances, or should we stay neutral? Yes, Pandastical.
Yeah, I am absolutely, other than Brexit, my major focus is to renew and revitalize our alliances with both Pavia, first of all, and Icarus. These have both been some of our most important allies for a long time now, right? But I think recently our alliance with them have sort of slipped, and that's I don't think that being diplomatically isolated to the point where we have no allies is not good, because we are not Victorian Britain, right? We do not have the sheer strength that if anyone attacked us, we can easily single-handedly shoot them away. Like we need allies for the bad times, because like I said, a good situation only works if it works in the bad times, not just the good times. And so I will absolutely work to renew and revitalize our alliances. I have talked with Danny as a private citizen, and he seems perfectly open with negotiating like a one-on-one, not like an FCC style like group alliance, but a one-on-one Pavia IF alliance, and I'd absolutely work with him to implement that.
Okay. Comrade Sankar, you can go.
Yeah, I think that Pavia and Icarus, and I think there are others around the world who have been great friends to the Imperial Federation over its existence. And while I'm not opposed to pursuing alliances and renewing alliances and signing formal documents, I think that we need to also take a look at what our domestic policy looks like. What do I mean by this? I think Panda was exactly right that at this current point in time, we do not have the capacity to really defend ourselves in the instance of an attack. And in the instance of a war, we'd have a very difficult time. I also want to counterpose that this also means that if an ally is attacked, that we also can't really provide sufficient support. And I want to make sure that we're both able to defend ourselves and we're able to defend others if they need it. And so as Chancellor, I will prioritize ensuring that we have a healthy and full national security policy, meaning that we are incentivizing people to practice PvP, that we are incentivizing people to get proper gear, that we are creating the necessary factories to cheaply produce armor domestically, while also evaluating what a alliance with Pavia, with Icarus, with others who may be interested might look like. There's a wide world out there with lots of friendly people, and we, I think, need to pursue foreign diplomacy with a friendly face.
Yeah, absolutely true. I definitely agree that we should do domestic development too. Sankara's right. That's why I've said to anyone that votes for me, Sankara should be their second vote, because I would totally trust him with external and domestic affairs. Yeah, he's right.
Okay, let's just let Zero answer this.
Hi. So I think that the position of pretty much all the candidates here is the same. You've heard the same thing from Sankara as you've heard from Pendastical. I think the priority, just like Sankara and Pendastical said, and this is, I don't think this is any of us trying to like copy each other. I just think this is generally the what's best for the IF is trying to develop our military a bit better so we can get lasting alliances and definitely try to create lasting ties with Pavia and Icarus, who've always been close friends of the IF. And I think that whatever chancellor you may vote for, this is something that's going to get done, and that should be the priority of both the Senate and the upcoming chancellor.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, and let's see.
Very uncontroversial question. That was a very uncontroversial question.
Yeah, Faux Hammer messaged me this question specifically for Pandastical. He says, regarding your comments on the wartime treasury, are you implying that as Chancellor, the IF would be at war, or would you rather keep the peace?
No, I'm not. Of course, I want to keep the peace. Like we've all mentioned, the IF is not ready for war. I have multiple times gone against going to war with proposed enemies of the IF. I've tried to keep us calm. The government has. I'm not sure if the citizenry is aware. We have gone through war scares in the Senate, but I've always tried to sort of rationalize us and keep us calm and steady. I'm not going to bring us into war. I merely think that we should always be all thinking about, if this broke out right now, how prepared would we be? And if the answer is we would not be prepared, which I do think is the answer, I think we should work to remedy that.
Okay, and we'll just finish this up. Any of the other two candidates, what are your policies just generally, as Pandastical spoke about, on war and peace, how we should be dealing with that military infrastructure?
Is that the last question?
Yes, because I have to leave, although other people can ask questions.
Fair enough. I want to say something that's slightly out of topic. Me and my campaign manager have just decided to drop out of the election and endorse Comrade Sankara, as we believe it's going to be the right person to be chancellor. I do not condone anyone voting for either Pendastical or especially Cool Chacha. So everyone vote for Comrade Sankara, and I am not going to say any more on this chancellor's debate. Thank you.
And Comrade Sankara, would you like to answer that question regarding military war, peace, military infrastructure?
Yeah, I think I want to first start off by thanking thanking them for their endorsement. This is a job that I take seriously, and I look forward to continuing to work with them in government capacity, and we'll be in some discussions as to what particularly that looks like. As far as the question with respect to war and peace, I do not want us to go to war, and I will do anything to avoid that. Like I said, I want to make sure that we build a healthy domestic security policy, and that means that incentivizing people to practice PvP, but I think it also means that we need to put forward a friendly face when we're on an international stage. I think that means trying our best not to shit on foreign nations. I think that means trying our best not to threaten foreign nations.
Get back here, Zero!
I think that also, that also means reaching out to just establish not alliances, but diplomatic channels of negotiation with as many nations as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's all I have.
Yep, so I think that'll conclude the debate. Obviously, people can ask questions individually in voice chat or in the questions channel. Yeah, and we only have one candidate remaining at the podium, so
I'm here.
think
I'm
that's a
still
good-
here. I was
okay.
just chasing my wannabe
I see.
assassin.
okay. Well, I think that's a good time to end. Thank you for attending.